All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll call to order the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting for May 24th, 2023. First item on our agenda is a determination of a quorum, and with 3 members of the 5-member board, we do have a quorum. Next item is approval of minutes from our April 26th, 2023 meeting. Those minutes were provided to the board. Are there any changes necessary to those?
No, sir.
Hearing none, those will stand approved as written. Next, we'll go to new business. Have 2 variance requests. The first is application Z23009 by Elijah Montgomery, requesting 2 variances from the zoning ordinance, Chart 2, from the required 35-foot front setback to 25 feet and from the required 25 rear setback to 21 feet in order to construct a single-family home on an approximately 5,487 square foot lot. This property is zoned RM16 and located along West Street. Mr. Aguilera, if you would review that for us.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Aguilera starts, I'd like to go on the record and state that I've known Mr. Montgomery for a number of years. I have not discussed his applications before the Board of Zoning Appeals with him, and I feel like I can render a decision objectively in this situation.
And I would make those same comments that apply to me.
Thank you for making those statements, and thank you, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, for being here today. We do have 2 items, both dealing with the variance today for today's agenda. I brought up an exhibit today to show you, and that's also included in our materials today, to show the 2 requested variances. They are going to be very similar in many aspects in the proposed use. There are some varying components that differ between the 2 applications, and so staff recommended that 2 separate applications, 2 materials, and 2 plot plans be prepared for this exhibit today. And so I brought that up for you all to review that, and to again just be reminded that even though this is on one lot, these are 2 separate variances being applied for 2 separate lots. So our first item is dealing with the one on lot 30. The applicant, Elijah Montgomery, is requesting 2 variances from the required setbacks of the RM16 zoning district to construct a 1,203 square foot single family detached home on the lot at 701 East Street. Again, this is for a single family detached home on lot 30. The property is zoned RM16, which requires a 6,000 square feet minimum lot size for the single family detached dwellings. And as you can see on the plot plan, those are the 2 requested variances that are being requested with this proposed application. And the 2 requested variances are front setback, from the front setback, a 10-foot variance from the required 35-foot front setback as set forth by Chart 2, and the single-family detached dwellings in the RM16 zoning district. The second setback that they are seeking relief on is a 3-foot variance from the required 25-foot rear setback as set forth in Chart 2. Included in our staff report is a table that staff has prepared to demonstrate what the minimum requirements are for a single-family detached dwelling in the RM16 zoning district. And next to it is what we put is the existing lot size, that is there today, and the variance requests. And so we just wanted to make that clear to help with the differentiation between lot 30 and lot 29. So in the instance of lot 30, the original parcel was subdivided in October of 1946. And I'm going to pull up the deed that staff found from our archives, and to see that that this was a very aged lot. This was a very aged subdivision. In the case of this home, in November of 1968, there were records to say that there was a home constructed on the lot. In further review of the lot, in November of 1985, staff found, I thought that was pulled up today. Here it is, I apologize. In November of 1985, it was found through our zoning records and our paper copies that the city zoned this as RML. RML stands for Residential Multifamily Dwellings Low Density, which was then later zoned as RM16. Staff believes that this was kind of an anticipation with the close proximity to MTSU, that the anticipation for some type of multifamily to develop there at those lots, but of course instead developed as single-family detached homes. Again, in the vicinity, we see quite a bit of single-family detached homes, and that house that was constructed in 1968 continued to remain in 2021 was when it was recently demolished. Based on the aerial views of the neighborhood that we see of the subdivision, the original house was constructed in the center of the lot, occupying lots 29 and 30. Despite it being two lots of record, it was still placed in the center of the lot. And in reviewing, again, the contiguous properties to the north and south, it was brought to our attention that from staff that most of these dwellings and most of the lot sizes were either within the setback, or the lot size was underneath the 6,000 square feet minimum lot size requirement. You can see from the plot plan here what the applicant is proposing. Again, which is, we believe that our setbacks that are consistent with what is, again, in the proposed subdivision. We wanted to also make known to the Board of Zoning Appeals that, for the members, that in 2020, there was a variance that was approved for 627 East Street. So there is a record of a variance already been approved in this subdivision. As stated previously, should the BZA grant approval of the variance, the applicant is proposing to construct a 1,203 square foot single-family detached home on the subject property on Lot 30. The applicant has provided elevations with the agenda materials, and I've pulled this up here so you could see the front elevation. The primary material that is being used for this proposed home is primarily hardy plank siding on all the facades, and will have an asphalt shingle roof. The proposed home will comply with the 35-foot minimum height requirement for that zoning district. Additionally, going back to the plot plan we reviewed, we wanted to make sure that there was going to be sufficient size and depth of the driveway, as they are required to accommodate 4 vehicles with a single-family detached home. Staff believes that this proposed use is consistent, again, with the neighborhood that is currently there existing, with the primary materials being consistent with the neighborhood and the setbacks as well. Because the setback standards for the single-family detached dwelling in RM16 zoning district results in a narrow depth of a subject property, the property was subdivided in 1946 and zoned by the city in 1985 as RML, again, residential multifamily, low density. This property has unusual hardships that are not created by the property owner. Additionally, other properties in the general area do not meet the minimum lot size of the RM16 district, and either as well, and were developed decades ago with similar setbacks that we have seen in the neighborhood today. Staff believes the applicant requests to be compliant with the required standards for a variance and has proposed a single-family product that is compliant with the minimum standards for height, parking, and again will be consistent with the overall neighborhood. In reviewing the standards for variance of Section 10 of the zoning ordinance requires that no bulk variance or other variance be granted unless the applicant establishes that the bulk or other regulations generally applicable in the zoning classification for the property for which a variance is requested imposes impractical difficulties which are unusual to the property and are not self-created. And in addition, the applicant must also show that the bulk or variance requested will not be unduly detrimental to the other property in the vicinity of the property for which the variance is requested. To satisfy these requirements and to understand and demonstrate these hardships, the applicant has written a letter, and that has been included with our materials today. And so based on the applicant's letter, they responded to each of the standards for the variance, and so I'm going to go over them real quick just to show what they are in compliance with. For the first standard, the requested variance are due to specifically identified characteristics of the land, such as the narrowness, shallowness, shape, topography, and other conditions of the land. Staff believes that this standard is met. The subject property was deeded in again in October of 1946. In 1985, from our zoning book, from our archives, again, it was zoned as a multifamily type district that then subsequently later developed out as a single family subdivision. As such, the current setback standards of the RM16 district make it difficult to construct a house within the required front 35-foot front, side, 5-foot, and 25-foot rear setback. With the property, minimum lot size of the property, again, it is under the 6,000 square feet minimum lot size requirement, so staff believes again that this requirement has been met. For the second standard, the required variants are due to specifically identified characteristics that are unusable to the subject land as compared to other land in the same zoning classification. Staff again believes that this standard has been met. As stated previously, the property was subdivided in 1946, and the adjoining properties to the north and south are also less than 6,000 square feet in area. With a variance already been approved in 2020 for 627 East Street, again, staff believes that this is already that there are other properties that have met this requirement, and that staff believes that this property meets this standard as well, that has identifiable characteristics that make it unusual to the subject land. For standard number 3, the requested variants are due to specifically identified characteristics or hardship that were not created by any action or inaction of the owner or the owner's agent. Staff believes that this standard is met as well. Because the setback standards for a single-family detached dwelling in an RM16 zoning district results in a narrow depth of the subject property, and the fact again that it was subdivided in 1946, not at the hand of the current property owner or the applicant today. Staff believes that this hardship is unique and not self-created, and thusly complies with the standard of number 3 of the variance. Standard number 4, that the granting of the requested variance will not be unduly detrimental to the other land in the vicinity of the neighborhood of the land for which the variance is requested. Staff believes that the granting of this variance would not be detrimental to the other land in the area. The properties in the general area of and along East Street vary in size and shape. Again, something that, in our viewing, resulted in us finding other properties that were not consistent with the setbacks or the lot size. The construction of the house will comply with the side setbacks, on-site parking, and other city standards and regulations. And additionally, the home will be constructed with the setback consistent, again, with several homes in the neighborhood. So staff believes that this standard has been met as well. For standard number 5, that the granting of the variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air adjacent to other adjacent properties, unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets, or increase the danger of fire or otherwise endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or morals, or substantially impair the intent of the purpose of the zoning ordinance or the general plan of area. In review of this standard, staff believes that this standard has been met. Granting the variance would not impair any of the above-mentioned elements, lighting, shadows, or air, and will not affect the congestion that is currently existing within the neighborhood. The construction of the house, again, will comply with all other setbacks and development requirements, and again, staff believes that this standard has been met. A variance may be approved if it meets all 5 standards as required of the Murfreesboro zoning ordinance. Whether the variance is approved or denied, the BZA must make specific findings of fact on each variance standards. If the judgment of the BZA that if any of the above standards shall not be met by a preponderance of the evidence, the variance must be denied and written findings provided stating the evidence for why the standards are not met. If the BZA believes all the standards have been met by the preponderance of the evidence, then the variance can be approved and written findings provided stating the evidence for why those standards have been met. For this requested variance, again, staff recommends the approval because all 5 standards appear to have been met. The applicants are in attendance. Mr. Elijah Montgomery and Mr. Carl Montgomery are here and are available for any questions, as am I.
Thank you. Any questions for staff now?
So you mentioned that in your comments that this is in line with the rest of the houses. So I'm assuming that, say, the 2 adjacent houses, assuming there's houses there, are in a similar fashion with respects to the front setback?
Yes, we believe when we were measuring the houses in that neighborhood, there was houses that were at anywhere from 25 feet to 38 feet, 35 feet. So there was some houses with varying setbacks, encroaching or not encroaching.
Okay.
Is it safe to say, I think you're saying in 1985 with the zoning that changed it, or at least was the initial zoning that created the regulation size, that given the age of all these homes, they wouldn't be in compliance in the first place?
Yes, because when the city, there was no written record of that decision making. That's why staff anticipates it was for multifamily property, which of course has different setbacks than what is being requested today. We believe that when this initial zoning was made, it was with the intent to have multifamily properties with those pushed back setbacks. But of course, the neighborhood subsequently developed out as single family, which has different standards under Chart 2 of the zoning ordinance.
Just a point of clarification. A lot of homes in our town are really old, including the subdivision, which predates our original zoning ordinance. So even if the original zoning was for the RML for multifamily, these houses predated that establishment of the zoning ordinance. So that it was built as a single-family district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any further questions for staff?
Is this inside the historic district that we?
No.
Okay.
No, Ms. King, this is outside the historic district and outside the city core overlay district.
Okay.
So this,
Aerial view in your packet?
I do have it in my staff report. I'm gonna zoom in, a little. Or I can go to GIS if we need to.
It's not far from, I mean, it seems like it's probably not far from those areas where we were seeing a lot of this prior to the city core overlay district being developed.
Yes, we initially thought it was a part of the city core overlay, and it is actually a few lots north of it. And so it was not captured when the overlay district was made.
Gotcha. But it has similar issues as what was happening with those homes before that district existed.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Thanks. Any further questions for staff? All right, thank you. Mr. Montgomery, anything you'd like to add to the application?
No, not really. All it's going to be is single-family house, affordable 37130 area code. There's not many of them available, as in I think these would be the only new construction houses available in 37130. So I think it's pretty simple. It aligns with the area completely. Most of the houses, like he said, do not comply, especially with rear setbacks. They don't comply at all to the current zoning, so I think it's a no-brainer in my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. If there's anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you'd come forward, give us your name and address, and provide us any comments you may have. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
Well, first off, I think, given, I think I've been on this board a lot, not as long as you all, but as when I was recalling, not a few years back, we were concerned. We saw concerns within the central part of town where there's so many opportunities to do things, and these setbacks become a little bit prohibitive. And so I think it is a good example of where we need to be, maybe moving a little more flexible in respects, some of these respects. And, you know, also given the need for affordable housing within, and seeing the renewal, I think, of some housing in this immediate area, I think would really be a positive for the community. So just want to make that statement.
There's a front setback and rear setback, I guess, for this application. Would it be best to take those separately? Is there a preference by?
I think probably they could be taken together since they're on one application.
Okay.
And just apply the motion to both setbacks just for the lot as a whole.
Okay.
I'll move to approve both setbacks and would incorporate staff comments as to the variance, into the standards of variance, incorporating staff's reasons that the variance standards are met.
A second, and I think, as she was saying, there's, you know, first of all, there's not any practical difficulties here. I mean, there are practical difficulties here with this plan, particularly given the square foot minimum size. It's obviously unusual, and there's a lot of precedents already in that area. And this, with their plan, it's not going to be detrimental to any other thing. There's not going to be any additional congestion or in danger of fire or in danger to the public health. So I think I would second her motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, so that application's been approved. Next, we'll move to application Z23010, also by Elijah Montgomery, requesting 2 variances for the zoning ordinance from Chart 2 for the required 35-foot front setback to 25 feet and from the required 25 rear setback to 21 feet in order to construct a single-family home on an approximately 5,481 square foot lot zoned RM16, and this is located at 701 East Street. If you go over this one for us, Mr. Aguilera.
Is it
Thank you,
East
Chair
Street or
Young.
West Street?
This is a double frontage
that
lot.
the other one was West Street.
Yes. It has frontage on East Street and West Street.
Thank you.
It was a little confusing again when we had to process this and see this,
I got these.
especially going through the deed. Thank you, Chair Young. This second item we have is a continuation of the variance request requested by Mr. Elijah Montgomery. This second item is a variance request for Lot 29, located property along West Street. Elijah Montgomery is requesting 2 variances from the required setbacks of the RM16 zoning district, again, to construct a 1,203 square foot single-family detached home for a property along West Street. The 2 variance requests are a front variance for relief along the front setback, a 10-foot variance from the required 35-foot front setback as set forth in Chart 2, and the second request with this variance is relief on the rear setback, a 4-foot variance from the required 21-foot rear setback as set forth by Chart 2 of the RM16 zoning district.
Hey, Joel, don't
You know what?
interrupt you, but I think Tim's right. Your second application's got East Street written on here.
Oh, it says West Street.
Application,
And then
yeah.
on this part.
On the
I
application.
know, but on
09,
the agenda, you've got East Street.
Well,
Yeah, it looks like they got.
Yeah, and
It's
back.
Yeah, the agenda.
application 009
I
is
think it's in
East
the
Street.
agenda.
That's one we just approved.
But we just approved East Street.
Yeah.
And then,
so-
and 10 is West Street.
Okay.
But the agenda shows it as East Street on the,
Okay,
on application 10.
interesting.
That's why.
But is East Street on the application?
I think the agenda
Yeah.
and the actual documents are what's
There's-
flipped.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
appears to be a flip with that. I think there might have been a correction, or I
But you
apologize.
got to make sure your application numbers are applicable to which
Yeah.
parcel.
Yeah.
So for application Z23010 is for a variance request for lot 29.
That's West Street.
West Street?
Yeah, West Street lot.
That's not the way, okay.
Yeah.
It's not the way.
Just
this reads.
agenda's not.
I
I
guess.
think the agenda, I think there was a little bit of miscommunication with that when there was
Does
typed
this
up.
affect, Attorney, does this affect the motion that was made on the prior agenda item?
Well, the motion was made based upon the application number, correct?
Yeah.
So I guess I can ask the board
701
was,
East Street.
yes,
That's one we've just approved.
yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Did-
It's
did
just
the
wrong.
board-
It's just
Okay.
incorrect in the agenda.
All right.
Yeah, and as long as the board didn't have any confusion about what they were voting on and approving
Yeah.
for that application number, I think the
Okay.
ruling can stand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I guess the public notice that went out, did that correctly identify each property with the application?
The public notice went out with the description of the project, but the file number would have been duplicative of the agenda numbers. So the file numbers would have been different, but the description of what the variance request is seems like it's accurate.
So the public would have been on notice for what was being requested. Is that correct?
Yes, so, yeah, the East Street description matches the East Street request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it seems like we just have a clerical error on the agenda then.
Okay.
Apologize for that confusion. Again, I'll play it for the record, just for Mr. Halburn and for Mr. Tips, for everybody, that, again, this second variant request, this second item, is for application Z23010 for West Street, Lot 29. Lot 29. So apologize for that confusion. Again, this is a double frontage lot, so there was a little addressing and everything. We apologize for that, and I apologize for that confusion right there. So for this application, again, Mr. Montgomery is requesting the two following variances for Lot 29, 10-foot variance from the required 35-foot front setback set forth by Chart 2, and a 4-foot variance request seeking relief from the 25-foot rear setback, again, on Lot 29 that is zoned RM16. Staff did include, again, a table for you all to review the proposed request with Lot 29 for the property located along West Street. Again, with the same elements and details that was communicated with the previous application, there's not too much variation with this other than the request that is being brought to you all today for the requested variances. This lot was subdivided in October 1946. In 1985, it was subsequently zoned as RML, residential multifamily dwellings, low density, and again, was already existing, as Marina Rush pointed out, that had already developed as single-family homes in the neighborhood. Based on the aerial views, again, in review of this neighborhood, we found that a number of homes and parcels to be underneath the 6,000 square foot minimum lot size square foot requirement. And in this review, again, we found what we believed helped with this review and research of the property, a variance file that was approved for 627 East Street. Because, again, the details are pretty much the same, I won't go too much into the history, but I will go into, again, the proposed use, which is, again, a single-family detached home, 1,203 square foot for Lot 29 that is being proposed. The home is, again, consistent with the neighborhood in that it will be primarily made up of materials such as hardy plank siding on all the facades, and will have an asphalt shingle roof. The home will be underneath the 35-foot maximum height requirement, as shown in the attached plot plan. And as you can see that there will also be sufficient space for the driveway and sufficient for 4 vehicles. Staff's recommendation is, again, because the property was subdivided in 1946 and it was zoned in 1985, the property does have unusual hardships not created by the property owner. And again, staff believes that the applicant requests to be compliant with the required standards for a variance and has proposed a single-family product that is compliant with the minimum standards for height, parking, and again, will be consistent of the neighborhood. I'm going to read the standards off again, the minimum standards for a variance, just so, again, we can be consistent with the decision-making process that you all, the decision you all will make. The following standards must be abided by per Section 10 of variance of the zoning ordinance. And the first standard, the requested for the standards for the variance, standard number 1, the requested variance are due to specifically identified characteristics of the land. Again, staff believes, similar to the Lot 30, that this standard has been met and that the property was subdivided in October of 1946. In 1985, it was zoned as RML, and that the density was in hopes of the multifamily density coming into neighborhood, but was already being developed out of single-family homes that did not comply with those standards. The current setbacks make it difficult to construct a home within the required standards that exist today, the 35-foot front setback, 5-foot side setback, and 25-foot rear setback. And because the parcel size being underneath the minimum 6,000 square feet lot size, we believe that these identifiable characteristics make it difficult to develop on, and so staff believes that this standard has been met. Standard number 2, the requested variances are due to specifically identified characteristics that are usual to the subject land as compared to other land in the same zoning classification. As previously stated, again, the staff believes that this standard has been met because of the unique hardship of the parcel size and shallowness of the land. Staff believes that this property and this request complies with this standard. The variance standard number 3, that the requested variance are due to specifically identified characteristics or hardship that were not created by the action or inaction of the owner or the owner's agent, and that is not self-created. Staff believes that this standard has been met. The property was subdivided in October 1946 and was not done by the property owner today or the applicant. and that this hardship is unique and not self-created, so thusly the applicant abides by this standard number 3. Standard number 4, that the granting of the variance will not be unduly detrimental to the other land in the vicinity for which the variance is requested. As stated previously, again, that this is going to be a single-family detached home product that is consistent with the neighborhood and will not be unduly detrimental and will comply with other city codes and regulations. So the applicant has complied with this standard. Staff believes that this standard has been met. Standard number 5, that the granting of the requested variance will not impair any adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets, or increase the danger of fire or public safety and welfare in the neighborhood, or substantially impair the intent of the purpose of the zoning ordinance or the general area for the plan. Staff again believes that this standard has been met. The granting of this variance and the product that is proposed with this variance is not going to impair any of the above mentioned elements. Staff's recommendation again for this application for lot 29 located along West Street, we believe that staff recommends approval because all 5 standards of the variance have been met. Again, the applicants are here for any questions that you may have, and I'm here as well.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this point?
I just got one. I don't understand why we're having to reconsider, have a separate motion. Help me understand that, because these are same property owner, same applicant, same neighborhood, separate streets. Why is that required?
They're separate lots of record.
Yeah.
They're separate lots of record, but everything else is identical.
Right. But the decision has to be made on a lot-by-lot basis.
Okay.
And it will carry, if I'm correct, Ms. Rush, that they will also carry with the property as well. So it will be important for that lot to have that record as well, rather than it just being for one lot.
Okay. It just seemed
That's a good
odd. You
question.
got the same building plan, you got,
Yeah.
everything,
Yes.
even adjoining lots, so,
We discussed it as well, and our attorney advised us we needed to make them separate, so.
okay.
It's my fault.
We blame you. Okay, no. They had to pay 2 applications too?
They'll answer that for you.
Nice, okay.
Blame the finance department for that one.
Okay.
That's not your fault.
Anything you guys like to add to this application?
I would just like to clarify that the only difference, because there is actually a difference between the
Okay.
two, and the one difference is that the West Street, lot 29, is asking for 1 foot farther on the rear setback.
That's,
21 versus 22.
Right.
Just because of how the lot lays out.
yeah, I did notice that. That's a big
So
difference
it's
there.
not exactly the same.
Yeah, okay.
All right, this time we'll conduct a public hearing. Is anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
I move we approve this application because after all that we've already heard before, there's practical difficulties, there's features here that are unusual compared to the others in the district. There's practical difficulties that weren't created by the landowner or applicant, and there's not going to be any variance. This is not going to impair supply, the air, streets are not going to be congested, they're not going to be in danger of fire, and public health is not going to be endangered any further. So I move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, so that application's been approved. Appreciate your time. Next, we'll move to special use permit requests. The first is application Z23012 by Joey Rouse of TNT Fireworks. They're requesting a special use permit to operate a temporary outdoor vending establishment, in this case, a fireworks retailer, in the parking lot of an existing shopping center. This shopping center is zoned commercial highway and located at 2946 South Church Street. Mr. Barbie, if you'd review that for us.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and members of the Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals. This afternoon, the first application I have before you is for a seasonal fireworks retailer located at the Innsbrook Shopping Center on South Church Street. The surrounding properties are all zoned and developed as commercial properties. It's a mixture of retail, restaurant, and financial services. Across the street, you do have Murfreesboro Fire Station if I can get that to where it's located right here, as well as the currently under construction Panda Express just to the south. The site was previously used as a fireworks retailer. They did lapse for 1 year, which has required them to come back, as well as this tent location had to shift due to a new oil change business. I think it's Take 5 that was constructed along South Church Street in the front parking lot and about that area. Staff has reviewed the application and the standards that are required for this particular use and have found that the applicant is meeting all of those requirements. We've discussed it with the applicant, Mr. Rouse. He does many of these fireworks tents, as you'll see today and over the years, and is well aware of how to operate and what needs to be provided. Staff requests that if you should decide to approve this application, that you make any approval subject to staff comments. And I'm available for any questions that you might have today, and Mr. Rouse is also here as well.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this point? All right, don't hear any. Mr. Rouse, anything you'd like to add to the application? Okay. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? If you'd come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or a motion.
I would move to approve this application for the special use permit, along with the conditions noted here by the staff that they need to comply with. And that's all.
This Kroger has a gas station too,
It does.
and it's away from both the gas station and the oil change place.
It is far enough away from the Kroger fuel station to meet the separation between a fueling source. We did not consider the oil change place as a fueling source because they do not sell automotive fuel.
Okay. I didn't know.
No problem.
I think we have a motion on the floor, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, so that application's been approved. Next, we'll go to application Z23013, again by Mr. Rouse of T&T Fireworks, requesting a special use permit in order to operate a temporary outdoor vending establishment, fireworks again, in the parking lot of an existing shopping center zone commercial highway. This one is located at 2449 Old Fort Parkway. Mr. Barber, you'd review this one.
Yes, sir. This is again located in a Kroger shopping center location. This is the Stone Trace Center that's close to the intersection of Cason Lane and Highway 96. Same type of situation. Surrounding area is all developed with commercial businesses, also a mixture of retail, restaurant, and finance. They've reviewed all of the standards, as with their other applications, that are able to satisfy all of those requirements. I do have the location circled here on the map. I figured out what this was on the podium for. And it is located well away from all fuel sources. There is a fuel source over here just to your far right, the Kroger fueling station, but it does meet the required separation from that structure as well. Staff recommends approval of this application based on their commitment to meet all the standards, and we would ask that if you do decide to approve this application, that you make any approval subject to staff comments.
Any questions for staff at this point? I'll mention maybe not so much opposed to this one, but in fireworks in general, I guess it's been quiet, and the people that have been operating these in the city have followed along with what we've requested. It seems like at least from what we've heard, it's been a pretty smooth process for most of these vendors.
As far as I can tell, everything's been very smooth. Most of these vendors do this year after year, so they are
Right.
really familiar with the process and requirements, and it's a pretty smooth system.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Rouse, would you like to add anything to this application? Okay. This time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve this special use permit and acknowledging that all 5 items under the special use permit have been satisfied and subject to all staff comments.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That application has been approved as well. Next, we'll move to application Z23011, again by Mr. Rouse of TNT Fireworks, requesting a special use permit to operate a temporary outdoor vending establishment, fireworks again, in the parking lot of an existing shopping center in a commercial highway zone. This is for property located at 2325 Memorial Boulevard. Mr. Aguilera, ball's back in your court.
Yes, thank you, Chair Young. This is a continuation of the special use permit requested for TNT Fireworks for our 2023 seasonal fireworks sale. Staff reviewed the application for the proposed request at 2325 Memorial Boulevard. In the staff report packet, you could see that the applicant will be situated in an area where it will be complying with the distance requirements for tents and fuel source. Ms. King, as you pointed out, wanting to ask the question about that as well. And will be operating within the consistent time frame that most vendors operate within. Staff reviewed the general standards of the temporary, general standards applicability, and found that there was nothing inconsistent with the application or the other applications made by Mr. Rouse. And the additional standards for temporary vendors, staff found that again that this was consistent with our standards in the zoning ordinance, and that they will Mr. Rouse's application will comply with the distance requirements. Time frame will be consistent with his other applications, and that all equipment and trash will be picked up daily off the site. Staff is recommending approval of this application for 2325 Memorial Boulevard, subject to the following conditions that you see in your staff report packet.
Go ahead.
I'll just question same thing about the fuel. So I know there's a fuel center there too. So where exactly is that going to be?
So right here in the plot plan that I pulled up over here, you can see where it's at, and I also included that in the staff report packet. So it's going to be 102 feet from operable fire hydrant, and then 242 feet from any nearest fuel source.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Anything you'd like to add to this one? All right. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing on this application. If anyone's present, please come forward and give us your name, comments. Kind of slow in the public comment territory today. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to a motion or further discussion.
It's my turn. I'll move to approve this application, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, so that application has been approved. And we'll move to application Z23017, the last one by Mr. Rouse of TNT Fireworks, requesting a special use permit for outdoor vending, again, fireworks. And this is for property in a commercial highway zone located at 2050 Las Casas Pike. You're up.
Thank you, Chair Young. Again, this is a continuation of Mr. Roundtree's applications for seasonal fireworks. This application is at 2050 Las Casas Pike. Again, the application does satisfy the standards of general applicability. We found that there will be no conflict with the ongoing commercial center operations, and they'll be situated in an area which is not going to be conflicted with any of the parking or, again, operations of any nearby businesses. For the additional standards for temporary vendors for fireworks, again, the location of the tent and of the business will be situated in a way which is compliant with the additional distance requirements that we have previously talked about today. It will be 423 feet from an operable fire hydrant, and again, will be beyond, it will be 594 feet of any licensed establishment that offers on-site alcoholic consumption, and 253 feet from the nearest fuel source. So in staff's review, again, this application staff believes that this application has satisfied those general standards and additional standards, and staff recommends approval of the following conditions of approval that is in your staff report packet.
Any questions for staff at this point? Hearing none. Mr. Rouse, your last chance to get on camera. Need anything for this application? All right, thank you. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for further discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the special use permit. This application appears to comply with all the standards set forth, and make that recommendation or that motion along with to incorporate the conditions of the approval set forth by staff.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, so that application's been approved as well. Appreciate your time. Next item, staff reports and other business.
Nothing from me.
No business here.
All right. Well, with no other business, we will adjourn. Appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.